Good evening, good morning, and good night. Welcome to Inappropriate Radio. It's your host, Shauna. Let's get started. Okay, so I'm actually excited about this topic today, guys, because this is something I've always thought about as a young kid. I actually have siblings that are mixed. My dad has children, My dad has children with a woman that is not black, right? They're Puerto Rican, right? So, and I know people say like, oh, Puerto Rican people are black, but people are Puerto Rican, we're mixed up. And I agree. Let's just take this at surface level right now. I mean, we're not going to go surface level. We're actually going to go a little bit deep, but I'm just, for the sake of context, right? So I wanted to go into this topic a little more in depth, but it's so much information that I think grazing the surface and then going in will make it easier to understand and break down, right? So we usually start out with definitions of the topic and whatever it is we're talking about. So today's no different. So DNA is composed of two polynucleotide chains that coil around each other to form a double helix, carrying genetic instructions for the development, functioning, growth, and reproduction of all known organisms. Two polynucleotide chains that coil around each other to form a double helix carrying genetic instructions. Okay? So when you think of that, right, you think of, well, for me, I get that information is being translated, right? It's like it says in the definition, genetic instructions, right? It's instructions for development, functioning, growth, and reproduction of all known organisms. So, a lot of researchers, scientists, biologists, physiologists, they all have studied DNA and its importance and what it can tell us about ourselves and the world around us. So because of that, a lot of people have come up with the theory that race is a social concept and not a scientific one, because research has shown that we are the human race, right? That there's only one race, and that is the human race. And that concept or idea comes from a research study that drafted a sequence of the human genome and basically came up with the conclusion. They concluded, that there weren't that many differences genetically, right? There has been notes that the evolution of the human DNA is still relatively young, right? So that would make sense. I'll give you an example. Well, before I give you an example, I'm going to back up. This topic is about biracial babies, right? And I'm especially excited because it's showing me my growth in how I view people of other backgrounds. I've become a lot more interested in learning about other cultures. Well, I've always liked to learn about other cultures, but I mean the actual people, actually interacting with people, actually building relationships with people from other backgrounds, right? I've become more interested in doing so more now than ever over the past few years, right? DNA is composed of 23 pairs per parent, right? So in total, you have 46 chromosomes from each parent. I don't want to gross anybody out, but when you get pregnant, right, this is basically both of your mate's parents coming inside of your body, and you are now transforming that semen and that egg into something new. It's combining with you now in your parents' sperm and egg. I hope I didn't lose you. If I have a baby, the DNA from my mate's family is now a part of my DNA makeup. I've combined two different genetic structures to make one. This is how we get life, right? So in totality, we're pretty much formed of four, right? Our mother and our father. The mother and the father from the mother's side, and the mother and the father from the father's side. The mother and the father from your mother made your mother. The mother and the father made your father. So from those two people comes from four different structures, right? What does this have to do with spirituality? I will connect it all for you. When you have a child that's not of your descent, you have now provided your child with more chains, right? More links, more ways to be reached and connected to, right? You're giving them more options for connections. And I'm going to go a little deeper into that. Because, I think we all know the basis and the core definition of DNA. So we don't have to really fight to figure that out. It's self-explanatory. But when we start talking about genetic instruction and codes, right? Because DNA provides the codes for the cell's activities. So when you think about that, you open your fetus up to being able to receive instructions from other sources. That's just more ancestors, baby. Okay? That's more information. And I found it very interesting that research shows that Africans have more genetic variation. And this makes sense because we moved around more, right? We made it more. We traveled more. We were taken from our native land, stripped. Okay? And I'm gonna tell you why this is important. We were taken from our native land, right? So that means that the original, we come from Africa. We come from a warm climate. We have a particular set of DNA. Once you are put into a new environment, it starts to strip the DNA and rebuild it. So we come from a warm place and we're now taken to a cold place. We are stripped of our native tongue and then given a new language. We are stripped from our land and now we have a totally new diet. That gives us a new set of DNA instructions, right? So all of these things are relatively connected. They're all connected to one another, thus leading back to the spiritual aspect of who we are as a people. And I'm not saying just black people. I'm just using African people as an example because we were shuffled around more than any other race. And that makes, it's evident because we have a wider variation of our genes. When you compare this to other groups, Native Americans have the least amount of variations, and that makes sense because they were never moved from their native home. They weren't moved from their land. Look at how they still have the casino reserves, right? They're still closely tied to what it is that make them who they are at their very core. Now, why this makes sense and why I'm bringing this up, is because, again, when you look at the spiritual world, there's always going to be a scientific explanation for what we see spiritually and vice versa. So, going back, before we go forward, going back, concluding that there's only one race, this makes sense, right? Because in the spirit world, we are not colored. We are energy. Just like how we'll say, oh, that baby been here before, or that he's black. It's a black person inside of that white person because they have soul, or because they have rhythm, or because they can cook, or because of the circadian levels in their voices, right? There's so many things that we can look at and point out and say what a person is or is not because of what we see, because of what they're presenting to us. Whether they have a big butt, whether they can sing, whether they can cook, whether they can dance, right? We always attribute those things to African ancestry. And I'm not disagreeing. One race, the human race, right? We're all connected. I'll give you an example. Rosewood, Florida. If you look it up, you're going to see relatively new information about how this is a small town of black and white people in Florida. And how the town, this is before Oklahoma City, how the town was bombed and yada, yada, yada. But if you go back and if you do a little more research, you'll find out that this area, before it became a town, was a small area in the swampland where the natives of this land, okay, the Native Americans and the African slaves used to hide off. They used to duck off and go in this area. And as it progressed and as time went on, it became a more civilized, organized town and became Rosewood. But before that, it was an area in the swampland where the natives and the Africans made it, right? They created families. So imagine having a dad from Africa. Let's say Jamaica. Let's say Africa, I'm sorry. Having a dad from Africa and then coming here and meeting Pocahontas. They make you. You now have the genetic sequence to be, you're coded, right? Your polynucleotide chains come from more than one background. So what that does is it exposes you to different systems. Now, I'm not sure how versed, you guys are in the idea of just us as a people, in the history of our background and who we are as a people. I don't know how well versed you guys are, but if you put that into terms of spirituality, you will definitely understand why this gives you more options as far as the spiritual world, because research has shown us that we come from different star systems. So a person could be black, blue, or green and come from Siri, right? The star of Siri. Another person could come from Jupiter. Another set of people can come from Mars. Now, these are energies, right? Not colors. So once manifesting down out of the ethers, out of the heavens, out of the spirit realm, and coming into planet Earth, when you think about that, it gives you more options and access to those star systems. Let's just say, and I'm only I'm only saying this so you guys can understand, because I'm not contradicting what I'm saying, but I want you to have a better understanding of where I'm coming from. Let's say black people are from Jupiter, white people are from Mars, Asian people are from Pluto, Hispanic people are from Uranus, right? When manifested down into the physical planet Earth, this time, this space, right? We're different colors. We're different races. We come from different backgrounds. But up there, we're all one and the same. So when manifested down into this time and space, you now have access to different cultures, different backgrounds, different levels and bodies of understanding, right? So I'm going to wrap this up. I was going to stay on for longer than 15, which I did, a little minute more, but I'm going to go because it's raining. It's time for me to eat. I'm starving. I tried to do this on an empty stomach so the messages could be more clear. So yeah, before I leave, right? I wanted to give you guys this, before we go. 6% of genetic variation is attributed to race categorizations, right? And remember, we just said Africans have more genetic variation. Native Americans have the least. So this 6%, is relatively small. Like research has shown, like 80 to 90% of us don't vary on a genetic level. So a lot of this thing is environmental, and as time progresses, as we evolve, our DNA also evolves and progresses. So why is this important? Because it forms who we are as a person. And what this means is that we have also opened ourselves up to having access to that, because the seed was planted by one and another. So what I mean by that is, if you're black and you have a child by a person who is not black, right? We've already discussed, I know it sounds gross, but it's life. It's how we all got here. We've already reached the conclusion that the DNA of our parents is now inside of us. Before the child is formed, you yourself have taken pieces of that information and it's now embedded into your genetic sequence. So that means you too have access to the information. It may not be as vast as that of what the child will get, but you do have access to the genetic sequence, to the genetic codes, to receiving the information, because you now have the chains planted inside of you, right? So I'm going to get ready and wrap this up. We're going to get ready and go. But I just wanted to make sure I put this out, because like I said, I usually will post something in reference to the topic throughout the week. And I usually try not to do too much research, because it'll drive me crazy and it will make me ramble on. And I don't want to ramble on. I want to pull out the most important parts of the information that I'm being instructed to lead anyone to. I'm not stopping anyone from doing their own research. By all means, please research it. Make your own podcast to put the information out there that I'm maybe missing. Email me, text me, DM me, provide me with information that may help me better understand it. So when I'm relaying this information, I am giving it out in a way that's relatable, understandable, and it makes you want to learn more. That's the whole purpose. I really, really appreciate anyone who's been tuning in, who's been sticking around. I know this is fairly new, and I know that I need more practice. If you have any tips, let me know. But I definitely wanted to get into this because this is going to help us tap into ourselves a little more. It's going to help us stop being so biased and stereotypical of one another, including me, because I'm very prejudiced. I'm very prejudiced, and I'm not proud to say it. I've been working on it, and I can see my progress. And the times that we're living in right now, we really, really don't need that. We really need to start trying to figure out how we can service one another, right? That is the overall purpose of why we're here, to make this place better. So it's Ramadan right now. I'm not necessarily practicing what I'm supposed to be, so I am going to try to do my best to do what it is that I can do. I am on board with fasting, though. Don't get that mistaken. Also, back to the DNA. I heavily encourage you guys to find out more about your grandparents on both sides if you can. I've been behind my uncle trying to get more information about my grandfather on my dad's side, because it's a lot of information there. When you look at your grandparents, you may see something and you may have a portion of the story. When you have access to all four of your grandparents, you have now accessed your ability to have a greater understanding of yourself on a soul level. So what I want to leave with you guys today is to find out what it is that you're made of, literally, because it'll give you a better idea of what it is you should be providing your children with, and so on and so forth. And for yourself, it's for yourself. It's for your development. It's for your growth. It's for your spiritual growth. And oh yeah, before I go, something else that a lot of people already know is that the Aboriginal Australians have been here the longest. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up, because this means that we may have some of their DNA inside of us, and it's just this one set of people. So why is it that we can't have a combination? As research has shown, that African people have a wider variety of genetics, right? And what this also shows us is how life is, right? We're all connected, right? On a soul level. I don't want to go into the Eve gene. I mean, we all know that the black woman can produce a child of any color. It's called the Eve gene. Look it up. Like Adam and Eve, like, the Eve gene. The mitochondria of the black woman carries all of the DNA. That is self-explanatory. I'm not going into that. I am simply trying to get you guys to look at the information that we have access to by being composed of all of those different genetic codes and sequences. It's already in us. So if you pass it down to your child and then your child is biracial, they are by their very own birthright unlocking and accessing the codes that have been passed down to them. It's information, it's genetic information. So you might see a black kid with blonde hair, blue eyes, Aboriginal. You may see a white girl who may be able to sing. And I'm sorry if that sounds crazy. I'm just using it as an example because those are some of our popular attributes, right? So yeah, I hope you guys are enjoying your Sunday. I hope everything is going good. And I hope you are staying dry. If you are in a place where it's raining, I'm in Jersey. It's raining right now. I'm not complaining. I really do want you guys to take this serious because God would not. He kept giving me signs. I actually just had a baby cousin that's her mom, my big cousin is biracial, so that means her baby has some of that information that comes from her both of the parents, right? So I just really wanted to go into this. Like I said, a lot of the stuff that I've been going over, I'm definitely gonna go back over into more detail. But I want to keep moving and start touching on the other things that makes the most sense to each of us. And that's going to be helpful and beneficial to us on a soul level, so we can grow and develop on a soul level. Once your soul starts to expand, everything else around you will fall into its rightful place, right? So you guys have a good Sunday. Hope you enjoyed your weekend. Hope you enjoy your week. Yeah, stay blessed up. Peace.